Good evening. I'm Jim McAdams, and wow, that's a strange microphone. I'm the director of the Nanovic Institute for European Studies, and I'm delighted to welcome you tonight to our very, very special film with our special guest. As I was thinking about this film, I couldn't help thinking about how we speak about the past, how we understand the past, and then try to convey what happened in the past to other people. In our own cases, if we think about our lives, how do we choose what to emphasize? Do we remember exactly what happened in our own lives? Do we ask our friends? Do we want to ask our friends about our own lives? And this issue is very important for people who are teachers at Notre Dame and for scholars, because it's so difficult to capture what was reality at one point and has changed at another. If we're thinking about a country like East Germany, which is no more, how do we capture that experience? How do we understand it? And then if we're a teacher, how do we convey it to our students? How do we make that real to them? It's very difficult. In my own case, I had the unusual experience of living in the GDR, East Germany, at different points. And I struggle with my own recollections to figure out what that was really like. And then when I try to tell people about it, it's difficult. When I watch movies about it, in which people try to depict a country that no longer exists, they frequently seem ridiculous. They have nothing to do with my memories or the memories of people like my friends, one of whom is here, who grew up in this country. So it's so difficult. But what if you could go back in time and find a film which captured the moment in a country which no longer exists, and that involved telling the stories or allowing people to tell the stories about their own lives? What if? And what if you then went back and talked with those people about their experiences? And tonight we have the really wonderful opportunity to have such a person who has had this experience and who can tell us about it from an historical perspective in two different points of time, and that's Ellin Hare. Ellin is a very distinguished filmmaker, film writer. She has been for a long time a part of a film collective called Amber, which was involved in making both versions of, or both parts of this historical study. Her work has been honored with many, many distinguished prizes. And so, Ellin, I'm delighted to welcome you to Notre Dame and to ask you to just say a little bit about the film to prepare us, and then later to stay with us to comment on all of your experiences and tell us about both knowing this other country, but also what it means to be a filmmaker who's dedicated to understanding the past and conveying the truth. So, welcome.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you, Jim. Thank you for inviting me here, and thank you all for coming out on this freezing cold night. I'm very impressed that you're here. So, yeah, I mean, I would just really, I don't want to tell you too much about the film, because I think it's always better to see the film and then talk about it afterwards. But what I would do is just maybe set the scene a little bit for how this film came about. Because obviously in the brochure it says this is an East German film. This is not an East German film, it's a film about East Germany, but it's a British film about East Germany, and I think it's quite important that it's an outsider's view. We were incredibly privileged, and I mean, in a way, it's purely by chance that this came about, that we had this chance in 1987 to go to East Germany, to be invited by the GDR to come and document and their country, or an aspect of their country. The reason that happened was that the year before that, we had been doing a retrospective of Amber's work in a film festival in Krakow, in Poland. And we happened to meet Winfried Junger, who was at the time quite a well-known GDR filmmaker from DIFA, which is the national, that was the national state film industry. And he, over a coffee, we got talking, and he said that his dream was to come to England to make a film. He was particularly interested in working class history, and he wanted to. He'd wanted to make a film in Manchester. He was interested in the working class history library there, and of course he wasn't allowed to do that because he wouldn't get permission to travel. So we hatched this plot that we would try to develop an exchange between the two countries, and we would propose that there should be a filmmakers exchange, and that he would come to visit us in our town, and that we would come to East Germany. And amazingly, and completely unexpectedly, really, they went for this. And we had an arrangement with Channel 4 at the time in England. There's a channel, I don't know if you know, but Channel 4 was quite a sort of radical, at the time, quite a radical television station, which was giving voice to independence. And we had a special relationship with Channel 4, us and other workshop film collectives around the country, where we were allowed to, we were given funding to make films on a yearly basis. We were given a yearly grant, if you like, to make films, and Channel 4 had no editorial control whatsoever on what we made. They couldn't change what we made. They couldn't commission anything. But they had first option to show whatever we made. And so we kind of had access to funds that were completely not, had no strings attached. So we proposed that we would put this funding into this project. And DIFA, the East German state film industry, decided that they would go with it. And Winfried Junger consequently came for 2 weeks to Newcastle, which is where we're based in the north of England, which is a shipbuilding and fishing and steel industry town with its steel industry. And we went to Rostock, which is an equivalent town in the GDR, which had shipbuilding and fishing industries. And we spent a week researching the film, and we spent 2 weeks making the film. And then we came away, and the films were shown in Channel 4, on Channel 4, both films, his film about Newcastle and our film about Rostock. And then both films were also shown in the GDR in 1988. It was a year later when the film was finished. And then, in 1989, we all know what happened. The Berlin Wall came down and the GDR no longer existed. So we had, I think, what was a very, very unusual document about a group of people who lived in that society, and really, I mean, at the time there was interest in it, but then when the wall came down, the story kind of went in a different direction. I mean, we were just talking about this over dinner, that there was such a triumphalism, it was such a good news story that became the story really from then on. That this was a great thing that happened. Germany was reunified, and we didn't think that much more about our film really over the years. I mean, we did wonder, obviously we wondered what had happened to the people. We did have a relationship with one of the people, particularly in the film, the old skipper of the fishing boat, who one of the members of our team did go and visit in the intervening years, and we did invite him over to England, but he was ill at the time. He couldn't come. But it wasn't until 2012, I think, that we started a process of re-digitizing all our old movies to preserve them for the future, basically to, transfer them to updated formats. And this was one of the films that we were re-digitizing, and we were looking at it, and we were, there was a nostalgic element to it. We were thinking, this is really quite interesting. And then some young people came and who were involved at the time with Amber and helping us, and they came into the cutting room and they were watching the stuff that was on the screen at the time, and they said, "Wow, this is amazing." They hadn't seen anything like this, and they were saying, "You should show this film. You should show it." So we did. We have a little cinema in Newcastle, and we decided we would show the original film, which was, by the way, called From Marks and Spencers to Marks and Engels. And we showed it, and we got an amazing response to it. People were really fascinated. And that was the point at which we thought, well, we have to go back, we should go back, because a lot of the people in the film are getting old now, and perhaps this would be the last chance to go and find them. And really that it's a very, ours was a very unique experience, obviously, to have had that access to their world, but also they were very unique in the sense that they are a generation who have experienced living under communism and living under capitalism within one lifetime. Their world had completely changed, and we thought that that's a really interesting thing to make a film about. And as Jim said, the past is a different country, isn't it? It's you can't go back there. The only way you can go back there is to talk. At least you can get there a little bit by talking to the people who were there, And when we went back, we were amazed at how incredibly open people were with us. It was like opening a bit of a floodgate, really, when we started to talk to people and ask them about their lives and what had happened, and they just basically couldn't stop. We did these incredibly long interviews with them, and they were so articulate. About their experience as well. So not only open, but just the interviews were really beautiful, and I think that what I felt was that because we didn't know these people, we'd only been in their lives. I mean, we'd been there for a fortnight filming, but we'd probably only met each one of them maybe for a day or maybe for two. But it was as if we were their old friends, you know, when we went back. And I think it was because they felt that we had witnessed, we had been there with them, we had witnessed their reality, and that reality had been wiped away. And not only had it been wiped away, but people didn't really even talk about it anymore. There was a kind of blanket over it. And somehow when we went back, we took the blanket off and people responded with incredible warmth and openness to us. We were very moved by it. So anyway, that's the project. So we'll watch the film, and then I hope that, I mean, this is the first screening ever in America, actually. So I'm really interested to know what your response to it is, because, I mean, this isn't just a German story. This is something that happened in my lifetime. Maybe a lot of the people in this audience, it happened after, I mean, before they were born, but the effect of it has affected all of history in the West, certainly since then, I think, and continues to affect us now. I mean, so I would really be interested to hear your response afterwards, and we can talk about that. Okay.